Beacon Video presents the 1989 Bus Conference at the Gospel Light Baptist Church in Walkertown, North Carolina. Let's join the conference now as Dr. Wally Beebe speaks on What Can I Expect to See on Highway 89?
Let me say that we've had, in the last couple of years, some real harassments by a lot of folks about the bus ministry. And it's not going to get any better, it's going to get worse. The devil knows that the bus ministry will win more souls to Christ than any other one thing in your church will do. You say, well, what about the soul winning program? It is a strange thing, but it's easier to go out and talk somebody into riding the bus than it is to go win somebody to Christ. And if you can talk somebody into riding the bus, bring them to Sunday school where the soul winners will be, where the Sunday school teachers will be, to the children's church where they be. And that's what I want you to do, because we can soft sell out on the bus route and get somebody on the bus, get them to come, and get them saved when we give them a hard sell when they come to the church. And so that's what we've been doing all these years, and thank God it's worked. Now, I have here from the Preferred Risk Insurance Company. Preferred Risk was started many years ago by Sam Morris, a teetotaler who preached abstinence, and those who did not drink were included in the Preferred Risk, and they were kind of a Christian company for a while. They're a secular company now. These are some things that they put out about church busing. And it's come to my attention. I wanted to, you may have gotten one if you're insured by them and some of these things. And you get, let me first of all say what you're going to meet. You want to know what you're going to meet? On Highway 89, you're going to meet intimidation. You're going to meet people that are going to try to intimidate you, number one, about the whole bus ministry itself and about soul winning on the buses and about all that's going on about what we're trying to do. And part of the intimidation is going to come from the insurance companies. Now, I've read carefully what they wrote, the 4 pages of what they wrote. One's by the regional claims manager, another article by the auto underwriting department, another one by the commercial marketing coordinator, and every bit of it is trying to get you to do something so they don't have to pay any claims. That's all the world it is. Now, if they're really interested in your buses and in your church, then let them bring people out and teach safety to the drivers. Let them go ahead and offer free courses on how to drive a school bus and how to back properly so that you don't back over guys' mailboxes and they have to pay a claim. Now, to sum up everything they said in here, they said, oh, those buses that were manufactured before 1977. Oh, those buses. He said, if possible, buy a newer bus. But if it is not possible, he said, put good brakes on it and good tires and put a shield around the gas tank. That's all in the world, they said. Now, I've got some little things I want to tell you. Don't be intimidated by all that jazz. I have here a National School Bus Fleet magazine from January 1989. And here are the percentage of school buses by state manufactured prior to 1977 that are in use by the state and county schools. Okay? All this junk you hear. Don't you have a bus that's older than 1977? They're unsafe. 50% of the school buses run in the state of California are older than 1977. 44% of the buses in the state of Indiana are older than 1977. Call your state out and I'll give you the figure. North Carolina, 20% of the buses are older than 1977 buses. Michigan, oh, now you got a pretty good group there. 5%, only 5%. The reason is the others have rusted away. Come on, I've told you the truth. New York State, not available. Wait a minute, New York State, 33%, excuse me. West Virginia, 33%. 23%. Maryland's not available. Virginia, 35% of the buses in Virginia are older than 1977. Tennessee, 23%. Kentucky, looks like 33%. Pennsylvania, not available. South Carolina, 23%. Ohio's 20%. Georgia is 14%. We're pretty good in Georgia, but that's it. All right, now, they say, I saw a thing on Channel 11 in Atlanta the other night. And, you know, it's On a Wheel and a Prayer. And there's a series put on. And this woman comes on there and she says, do you know that there are hundreds of children being bused to church every week on unsafe buses? I do not have at my fingertips the exact figure on how many church buses had a wreck last year in Georgia. But last year there were 1,065 school buses that had a wreck. There are only 8,000 school buses in all of Georgia. 1 out of every 8 school bus had a wreck last year. Now let them jump on them and let them shut up about us. I've got the figures here. I haven't time to talk to you about that this morning. But I'm just going to say, don't let them intimidate you. They're going to have to jump on every single school board. They're going to have to jump on every county before they intimidate you. And you stand up and say, okay, when they clean up their act, then I'll do it. Now, let me say something else. Don't tempt the Lord. Some of you have the idea that if I'm somehow you get behind the bus, you suddenly become an angel driving that bus and no one can touch you. Well, that old drunk touched that Assembly of God bus. And by the way, that's what they all use. They're going back to that Kentucky bus accident. That bus accident was in no way responsible by that church. In no way. Now, let me tell you something. The Lord's plain. In this wonderful book, it tells us you can pick up serpents and they won't harm you. You can drink poison and it won't harm you. But it's not talking about you go handle rattlesnakes. It's talking about Paul who reached in to put some sticks on the fire and a viper bit him. That's what it's talking about. Paul was on his way preaching the gospel. He had to go where he was. There was no way out of it, and he was bitten by a snake, and it didn't harm him. That does not mean that promise of God in the book of Mark is not for you to go ahead and drive unsaved buses all the time. You hear me? Now, remember, what I'm saying is the media picked on something that was absolutely not our fault and was not the church's fault. And if they're going to pick on that, then what in the world are they going to pick on when they see that thing you got coming down the street? Let me give you some verses. Let not your good be evil spoken of. Abstain from the very appearance of evil. I was preaching in a church in Mississippi, and they were bragging to me about how wonderful mechanical shape that church bus fleet was in. But to look at it, it looked like last year's scabies. I mean, the paint was peeling off of everything, everywhere. The paint was peeling off the bumper. The bumper had been 4 or 5 colors. It was all 4 or 5 colors. The wheels were 4 or 5 colors, everything. Just a little can of black paint would have fixed up that bumper. Now look, guys, let me tell you, cosmetically, you need to look like you're clean and right and fixed up and running right, as well as being that way. You say, well, they're all mechanically sound, but you're giving a bad image. I'm going to say this, too. Don't paint your buses unless the state makes you paint them. Keep them yellow. Keep them yellow. And I'm going to tell you something else, too. Get your teenagers out there waxing those buses. Have a bus waxing party. And wax. Those old buses will really clean up nicely. You'd be surprised. Get them all waxed up, make them look nice. Keep them nice. Keep them as nice as you can. Now, I realize I'm speaking to some of you folks who are just barely getting by. I've been preaching in some churches this year that, honestly, I marvel how they get by at all. The poor communities. I've gone to some churches where the whole, if you said, let's have old-fashioned Sunday, and let's bring in the old stuff and bring it in, and we'll have kerosene lanterns, and we'll have this and that. It wouldn't be old-fashioned to them. That's the way they live all the time. And that'd be a special day. Now, I realize that some of you do not live in areas, areas where there's been a lot of unemployment, and there's been a lot of folk out of work. I understand all that. But I'm saying, don't be intimidated, number one, by the insurance company. You do what's right. You do what's right. What does the Bible say? Some of you are going to suffer, but don't let a Christian suffer as an evildoer. That means if the law says get your bus inspected, inspect it. I'm going to tell you something. Bus inspection would have not have helped that bus in Kentucky. It would be an inspection of the drunks that would help the bus in Kentucky. And when liquor comes up, you start talking about that bus accident. When liquor comes up in your community, you tell about it and say, listen, 27 lives snuffed out by one drunk, thoughtless person who couldn't even help himself. And somebody said, well, I'm against alcohol. The best way you get out against alcohol is win some souls. So I'm against communism. Best way to get down communism, win some souls. So I'm against liberalism. Then go ahead and liberalism in the government. Then win some souls. They'll become conservative. You do what's right. You do what the insurance company requires. If the insurance company, you ask them, do I have to have a driver that's over 25 years old? If you have to have a driver that's over 25 years, and then get that kind of a driver. Now, they've asked me to testify to several, the commission, United States Commission, Transportation, others, and one, no, what do you think about this, knowing all about the buses and so on? Number one, I believe we really ought to have state inspection of all church buses. Now, I didn't get too many amens. I want a safe bus. I want a safe bus. I don't want them pointing the finger at me and saying that bus was not inspected and that's the reason that, and they're lying about it. That isn't the reason that they had an accident, because it wasn't inspected. That had nothing to do with it. But at least they wouldn't have that to tell us about. And some of you, you know it, unless somebody pushes you, you don't fix the dumb thing. But I also believe that they ought to give us the same accord that they give school buses if they want us to be required to do that. We ought to have people stop in every direction when we're on the road, picking up our little children. And I believe we ought to do that. But we got to have both of it. Now, let's be willing to do something in order to get something. I mean, nobody, and I've had, and I'm not going to say it all because it would be embarrassing. There might be somebody here from that church. But there was an accident. Child was killed, slipped through a hole in the floor of the bus. You said, well, the preacher didn't know about it. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know about it. But preacher, it's your business to know what's going on those buses. It's your business to know if there's a hole in the floor that somebody's put a rug over. Look, rugs don't keep kids out of the holes in the floor. Fix that bus. Fix that bus. Fix it. Don't be intimidated by the media. Don't be intimidated by the government. If the government makes us close down, okay, but make them make us. Don't just be intimidated and say, well, I'm going to close it down. I don't want to face all that. Face it. And you're going to be intimidated by church members. Well, I read somewhere. Oh, shut up. What are you going to face on Highway 89? You're going to face something you didn't face 5 years ago. It was even unheard of 5 years ago. You're going to face AIDS. Now, I'm going to say something. I'm not going to elaborate on it. I'm going to say it, and this is my opinion as Mr. Buss. If you have a child that you believe has AIDS, if you have family that they're AIDS on your bus route, I'm going to say this, and I know I'll say a little bit afterwards, but drop that part of the route and do not say one word to that child. You say, it's going to hurt. Yes, it is going to hurt. But it's going to hurt more if you lose the whole route or the whole bus ministry. I have a little saying. I didn't say it in my lecture. I'm going to say it now. One soul is worth more than the whole world, Jesus said. But one soul is not worth more than 20 souls that could get saved. You say, well, what about those poor people? Go and visit them individually. Talk to them, give them a chance. But don't expose the whole church. You say, are they going to catch it? No, I'm not talking about them going to catch it. I'm talking about the fact is that you're going to get a reputation, and if they ever get a hold of it in the media, you are cooked. You're dead. You say, that hurts. I know it hurts. I know it hurts. And by saying that, let's go to one other thing. We have missionaries who give themselves to the mission field to go to work in leper colonies in Africa. Is that not true? We have missionaries that give themselves to be doctors and go work in hospitals with very contagious diseases. We're all scared. Everybody's scared. Oh, AIDS, AIDS. One fellow told me that he lives in Miami. And he said he went by one yard, there's a big sign in the yard. Said this yard is patrolled by a pit bull with AIDS. Nobody went in that yard. Nobody. Now, I must say, don't get intimidated about the AIDS business. Just don't get intimidated. You say, well, suppose it's easier cut. Suppose it is. So what? I don't want to live forever anyway. I'm ready to go. I don't mind. Remember what I said? Don't tempt God. Well, I'm going to show you how I'm so protected I couldn't get. Yeah, You're going to show what an idiot you are is what you're going to show. And you're going to make the cause of Christ be ridiculed because of your stupidity. Now, you don't do that. You don't tempt God. Jump off the pinnacle of the temple. Oh, Lord, don't you remember in the Bible where the Lord, where it said the angels would bear you up? He said, don't tempt God. Don't tempt God. Don't tempt him. No, you do what's right. Now, where sin abounds, grace does much more abound. And I'm saying don't explain it to the family, because if you explain it to the family, you're going to have somebody say, well, I'm going to bring a lawsuit to make you take my kids. And that's not even the purpose of the bus ministry. The purpose, and I say this about the bus ministry, privilege to ride our bus, not a right. We don't have public transportation. It's a privilege. And if you kids don't straighten up, you don't have the right. You don't have any right to ride our bus. You lose your privilege. All right, now, I think we need to be more determined than ever and go where angels fear to tread, yes. But I think that we need to go ahead and be careful about what we do. I looked up some verses in the Bible, and you may agree with my exegesis. You may disagree with it, about it. But I found the word bus in the Bible. It's connected to another little phrase, but it's spelled B-U-S-I-N-E-S. Bussiness. I found some wonderful verses in the Bible that talk about the bus ministry. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 8 says, because the king's bussiness requires haste. I know I'm stretching. I know that. Don't come up after me and say, I don't believe it. Shut up. I think the bus ministry today requires haste, that we get in it and give it all we've got, because we don't know how long we've got. Okay? We need to be desperate men. Desperate about what we're doing. About this thing. You understand what I'm talking about? Let me give you another verse. Nehemiah chapter 11, verse 22. Over the bussiness of the house of God. Are you a bus director? You're over the bussiness. You're a pastor? You're over the bussiness. You need to know about the holes in the floor. Proverbs 22, verse 29. Seest thou a man diligent in his bussiness? He shall stand before kings. I know. Luke 2:49. I must be, Jesus said, about my Father's bussiness. How about that, huh? Come on. All right. Well, you look at it your way, I look at it mine. Now, we have three groups of people in this room, basically. I know we have some of our students here this morning, and they're going to hear some preaching after a while instead of this, what you hear now. I don't know what you call this. Let's talk about the bus ministry for just a few moments in the light of the segments of who we have here. Now, we have some ladies here, and you are none of these. Well, no, yes, you are. You are part of one of these. But we have here some deacons. And I wish to remind the deacons this morning about some things. We have here laymen. They are not pastor nor deacon. They are just laymen in the church. We have here pastors, preachers. Let's talk about the layman for just a moment. Your bussiness. Let me talk about your business. The Bible says that we are to be fellow laborers in the work of the Lord. There's only one labor for every Christian. You say, what's that labor? Get somebody else saved. That's your labor. Now, if working in the nursery helps you to do that, and helps someone else to do that, then so be it. That's what you're supposed to do. And by the way, we need some ladies on Saturday morning that will come and babysit, while other ladies who are more bold, perhaps, will go out and storm the gates of hell to bring little children to Christ. We need some ladies who are older, who can't do all the walking around that they did before. We need them to go and babysit. We need that. We need some laymen to bear some lambs. And I'll say this also. You say, well, Brother Beebe, I'm going to let the soul winners be the Sunday school teachers and the folks that do that. Some of our best bus captains have always been folks who purposely, as they went on the way home, you say, I don't have a program on the bus. Let me give you a program you can have on the way home. Ask every kid on the bus if they're saved individually as you go home. Listen, I've seen so many kids saved on the way home in the seat. Have you been saved? And a lot of the kids will say, well, I got saved today. All right, that's just a springboard to go ahead and get the other kids interested in that. They say, well, he got saved today. Maybe that's what I ought to do too. Amen. That's what we ought to do. Do soul winning on the way home. Let me talk to the deacons for just a moment. Deacons, God help you if you ever sell the buses of your church because, quote, nobody's interested in running them, end of quote. The deacons of the church ought to lead the way in being bus captains and soul winners in the church. You ought to lead the way. Listen to me. Lead the way. You're not a board that's sitting there trying to advise the pastor as a corporate board is. That's not your job. Your job is to help lift up the hands of the pastor, lift his load and carry his load and be a blessing to him. Had folks in read little books on how to be a deacon. Said, I'm ready to be a deacon. You're not ready to be a deacon until you go soul winning every week. You're not ready to be a deacon until you lift the load without having an office. One of the worst things you do is give somebody an office and then quit doing it. I don't understand that. But it's human nature. I've been in some churches this year where 10% of the church was on the deacon board. Yeah. I've been in a church of 200 had 27 deacons. I've been in a church of 100 that had 10 deacons. That's 10% of the church. Rather than these things ought not so to be. I had one fellow came to me already. He said, Brother Beebe, maybe I'm a heretic, but I don't have any deacons. Amen. It's all right. Doesn't mean anything. Only reason deacons came into existence is because there was trouble in the early church. There's been trouble ever since. No, you're wonderful folks. God bless you, deacons. I've had some wonderful deacons. I don't know what I would have done without you. Anything that Wally Beebe ever did, I'd have to go back and say, I had some good men to help me do it. And I'll tell you what we did. You say, oh, Brother Beebe, just had men of means and wisdom. No, I had men that on Saturday night crawled from seat to seat on the buses with me and laid hands on those seats and asked God to put somebody in there to be saved. And every Saturday night of the world, we had one light on the pulpit. And we had come and go prayer meeting, and people, you could see them crawling from seat to seat, praying over the seats. Now, folks, it's time. Oh, you come to get methods. Yeah, this is a method I want you to get. You go home and try it. And when you get up to preach on Sunday morning, we see what happens. We see what happens. And don't brag about what you did about it. I'm only telling you because you need to do it. Okay? Pastors, about 3 minutes I want to talk to you. Pastors, I wish I could fire you up. I know some of you have already been fired up. Not by me. God's fired you up. These preachers have fired you up. But Brother Hiles hit on something that I think I need to just expand for a moment. You say, do you want us to come to the conferences every year? Do you want us to come to the bus conference? Yeah, I do. But I'd rather you didn't go to so many seminars and conferences. I know some pastors, and God bless them, they're good people, but they go from basic youth conflicts to Grace International Fellowship to a pastor's school over here, to another pastor's school over there, to a seminar on this. And he said, well, I can't get anything work. Go this seminar over here. That's not what you need. That isn't what you need. You need to get back to basics. And the basics are your community is lost. Your church needs to be preached about separation and standards and standing for Jesus Christ and standing for the blood of Christ and the inspiration of the Word of God. We do have a standard we can go to, and it's right, and it's not wrong, and it's what we need. And some of you don't go, you don't do anything. I'm amazed. I go with pastors, and they say, well, come on and go with me tomorrow. We're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And all they're doing is goofing off, relaxing. I think you need to rest. I think you need to go ahead and relax. But I tell you what, you're going to go nuts relaxing. Some of you. I'm going to say what Dr. Rice used to say. He said it all the time. Everybody got mad at him for saying it. But if you're not going to go win souls, if you're not going to go at a bus route, and I'm talking about pastors that visit on the bus route, I don't mean you have to visit every week, but you need to get out on that bus route sometime, and you need to encourage those bus captains by getting out on that bus route, and you need to get out on that bus route so you know who you're preaching to and who their background is. And if you're not willing to do that, then resign the pastorate and don't do that, and make an honest living selling insurance or pumping gas someplace. You're not honest. Got 1 more minute to go. Pastors, my heart is for you. I love you. I can sympathize with you. I've been on each side of the coin. I've been associate, I've been assistant. I've been pastor. I know your feelings. I know what goes onto your shoulders. I know that. And I wish I could bear your burden. Maybe I can bear a little of this bus burden for you. And when you get intimidated and when you get shocked and when you don't know what to do the next time, holler, I'll try to help you. And I've got to be careful about saying that, because just as sure as you start depending on me, God will kill me, so you won't depend on me. Come on, I'm telling you the truth. Some of us have said, oh, I'll call Brother Hiles. You better be careful about all that. God's going to say, well, you know what? They're calling Brother Hiles instead of calling me. I guess I better take him home. I don't want him taken home. You leave him alone. Okay? All right.